The burden of Egypt. Behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. And they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards. And the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, said the Lord of hosts. And the waters shall fail from the sea, and the river shall be wasted and dried up, and they shall turn the rivers far away, and the brooks of defense shall be emptied and dried up, the reeds and flags shall wither. The paper reeds by the brooks, by the mouth of the brooks, and everything sown by the brooks shall wither, be driven away, and be no more. The fishers also shall mourn, and all they that cast angle into the brooks shall lament, and they that spread nets upon the waters shall languish. Moreover, they that work in fine flax, and they that weave networks, shall be confounded. They shall be broken in the purposes thereof, all that make sluices and ponds for fish. Surely the princes of Zoan are fools. The counsel of the wise counselors of Pharaoh is become brutish. How say ye unto Pharaoh, I am the son of the wise, the son of ancient kings? Where are they? Where are thy wise men? And let them tell thee now, and let them know what the Lord of hosts hath purposed upon Egypt. The princes of Zoan are become fools. The princes of Noph are deceived. They have also seduced Egypt, even they that are the stay of the tribes thereof. The Lord hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man staggereth in his vomit. Neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which the head or tail, branch or rush may do. In that day shall Egypt be like unto women, and it shall be afraid and fear, because of the shaking of the hand of the Lord of hosts, which he shaketh over it.
It certainly is extraordinary to watch a moment of great celebration. The military has ousted the government. The people had said, we need talks. The people had said, you're not doing what we elected you to do, Mr. President. He brought in this Islamist ways of thinking, and Islamist rule was going farther and farther toward Islamist rule. The Egyptian people, 70% of all Egyptian people are under the age of 30. 70%. They will now be a part, says the leader of the military, of reforming the government. But this party is just the beginning. As Tim Marshall, the foreign affairs editor for Sky News, our network in Great Britain, put it tonight, there is no way to know what tomorrow brings. Certainly they will have new elections in a matter of just a few short weeks. Hopefully they'll be able to keep the two sides in this conflict, because make no mistake about it, President Morsi and his Islamist government have great support within the country. He was elected democratically, albeit by a narrow margin at 52 to 48%. But he did have a great deal of support among the Islamist faction of the country. Whether they will rise up in some way or attempt to against the military or against their fellow citizens remains to be seen. We can certainly hope not, because what the world needs in Egypt is stability, and the military reflected that just a short time ago. Watching over it all from Tahrir Square for us is our correspondent Connor Powell, who's covered wars in Afghanistan and uprisings in hot spots all around the world for us. It's my understanding, Connor, that these crowds are bigger and louder and more jubilant than they were when Mohamed Morsi came into power.
Shepard, what we understand is that these are the largest crowds from even before the revolution 2 years ago. I mean, the local staff that we've talked to here said that there are streets that are full of people tonight that have never been full of people before, even during the height of the revolution 2 years ago. So by all estimates, these are the largest crowds. One of our local guys was telling us, remember that 2 years ago, many Egyptians were still scared to go out and protest against the government, against the Mubarak era, and against the military, you should remember. Now Egyptians are fully comfortable to go out and to protest. They came out in mass on Sunday. They never left Tahrir Square. They never left the other cities and streets across all of Egypt, and they have been partying here all night. Really, it started yesterday because they believed last night that the military came out on the side of the opposition here against the military, against the Morsi regime here. And the people here in Tahrir really do believe and have believed for the last, 48 hours or so that the military was going to remove Morsi, was going to remove the parliament that they so disliked. And now their wish has come true. And they've been celebrating with this level of noise for more than 30 minutes now, Shepard.
It is quite astounding.
To our viewers here in the United States and around the world, this statement from the President of the United States, Barack Obama. As I have said since the Egyptian Revolution, the United States supports a set of core principles, including opposition to violence, protection of universal human rights, and reform that meets the legitimate aspirations of the people. The United States does not support particular individuals or political parties, but we are committed to the democratic process and respect for the rule of law. Since the current unrest in Egypt began, we have called on all parties to work together to address the legitimate grievances of the Egyptian people in accordance with the democratic process and without recourse to violence or the use of force. The President of the United States continues. The United States is monitoring the very fluid situation in Egypt, and we believe that ultimately the future of Egypt can only be determined by the Egyptian people. Nevertheless, we are deeply concerned by the decision of the Egyptian armed forces to remove President Morsi and suspend the Egyptian constitution. I now call on the Egyptian military to move quickly and responsibly to return full authority back to a democratically elected civilian government as soon as possible through an inclusive and transparent process, and to avoid any arbitrary arrests of President Morsi and his supporters. Given today's developments, I have also directed the relevant departments and agencies to review the implications under U.S. law for our assistance to the government of Egypt. The President continues again. The United States continues to believe firmly that the best foundation for lasting stability in Egypt is a democratic political order with participation from all sides and all political parties, secular and religious, civilian and military. During this uncertain period, we expect the military to ensure that the rights of all Egyptian men and women are protected, including the right to peaceful assembly, due process, and free and fair trials in civilian courts. Moreover, the goal of any political process should be a government that respects the rights of all people, majority and minority, that institutionalizes the checks and balances upon which democracy depends, and that places the interest of the people above party or faction. The voices of all of those who have protested peacefully must be heard, including those who welcome today's developments and those who have supported President Morsi. In the interim, I urge all sides to avoid violence and come together to ensure the lasting restoration of Egypt's democracy. The final paragraph from the President. No transition to democracy comes without difficulty, but in the end, it must stay true to the will of the people. An honest, capable, and responsible government is what ordinary Egyptians seek and what they deserve. The long-standing partnership between the United States and Egypt is based on shared interests and values, and we will continue to work with the Egyptian people to ensure that Egypt's transition to democracy succeeds.
Egypt. This is Alexandria, in Cairo, in city after city, people by millions upon millions upon millions of people in the streets to celebrate the extraordinary announcement which we all just heard. Egypt, our greatest ally in the Middle East, a country of some 80 million. The Constitution has just been suspended. The military has, in essence, overthrown the president. The head of the Constitutional Court, the Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court, appointed the interim head of state, Mohamed Morsi, elected last October as the democratically elected president of Egypt, has been ousted by a military coup over the past 3 hours. And as we go live from city to city to city, all across Egypt, spontaneous explosions of fireworks, cheers from people of all ages. The night sky is lit as the government has now been handed over, in essence, or taken over by the military. There will be now a parliamentary law which comes into effect. a National Reconciliation Committee, which will involve youths. They will select a new parliament. They'll have new elections. And Egypt's democracy lasted just a few short months. This country, ruled by military law for some 8 decades, is now there again. And in one of the most difficult regions on all the earth, where the United States has some of its most pressing foreign policy concerns, there is upheaval. The will of the people has been overturned by the new will of the people, because, as they put it, their duly elected president had been turning the country into an Islamist state, changing the rules of the game in front of the people against the will of the people. And now the people's military has come in and taken over. Imagine something of this nature at the White House. It is, in essence, what has happened today in Cairo. We're getting coverage with cameras all over the country with the help of our sister network Sky News for the United Kingdom and Europe. Let's listen in.
Real Morsi demonstrations and sample some of the atmosphere there. Still, they take messages from their leaders, informing them of what the decision has been made on their behalf. The fact that their leader that they elected 1 year ago was taken aside by the military leaders here in Egypt at 7 o'clock local time and quietly told that the game was up, that he wouldn't engage in a national dialogue guided by the armed forces, that he hadn't done the job that they expected of him. That in the last 6 months he'd started pounding an agenda that many people felt was unacceptable, and now they have to accept that that is over. No violence, no clashes with anti-Morsi demonstrators, because they are surrounded by soldiers, because the army have sealed off entrances to their buildings. They've put barricades around the areas where they've been protesting. They have locked them down so that they have to take the news and soak it up and maintain peace on the streets of Cairo. All they can do now is listen to the protestations of their own leadership. The noise here in Tahrir Square can be easily described as deafening. These people will now cheer for an unspecified period of time. There is plenty of energy left in this crowd and the others around Cairo and Alexandria and Suez and all the other cities where these demonstrations have been running now for 5 days. A determination that the Egyptians have learned, for better or for worse, is that if they are not happy, they can take to the streets and people will listen. Egyptian politics has never seen anything like this before.